Hello everyone, welcome to chapter 2, Strong Bishop in the Endgame. Today we'll take a look in the game between Hare Krishna Pentala and Magnus Carlsen. I hope you will enjoy this game. In this position, as you can see on the board, I will say the position is kind of like symmetrical. It looks pretty equalish. The only problem for black is kind of like these two separate pawns of Magnus in this position, but I will say that position is closer to the equal, that white is like maybe white is slightly better. But in the other hand, white has the bishop pair, these two bishops on d3 c1, but we can say that one of these two bishops will be kind of like a traded pretty soon. So we can say that white is maybe slightly better, but it's a kind of like close to equal. White played first the move b3 in this position. Idea of b3 is that at some point, white wants to push c4 and to try to open up possession in the center. Black played move king g7, activating the king c2, and finally here, Carlsen decided to trade the bishops. So bishop c1, king takes c1. Here, Hare Krishna didn't want to take up, obviously, with the rook, because rook will just disappear from the open f file. So that's one reason why he took with the king. And now here, again, black played the move h6. So this is a kind of like a waiting move, moving the h pawn from the light square, putting on the dark square, and saying, okay, yes, my two pawns are separated, but at least I can put them on the dark squares, so your bishop on, or let's say white bishop on d3 can't touch any of these two. White here played the move h4, saying, okay, I'm slightly better. I want to push these pawns forward, but I want to be careful. So here, Carlsen played the move knight to f8. Looks a bit passive, but here, black idea here is to play move knight g6, saying, okay, I want to attack your h pawn, and then when you push h5, at least I will have a blockade square on the square g5. What happened here is that white activated the king to d2, knight goes to g6, attacking the h pawn on h4, and obviously white played the move h5. So here, what white wants is to put the pressure on the knight on g6 as much as possible. Here, black played the move knight to f8, and now bishop to f5. Main idea of bishop to f5 here is to make the space for the king, so king can come closer to the center. After bishop f5, now black played the move knight to e6, and this was kind of like the main idea of black in this position, with the plan of the h6 to have this g5 square to jump with the knight. Here, white played the move king to d3, knight c7, and finally c4. So I can say that again, white is slightly better because it's much easier to play this type of position with white, because like this position is kind of the open, and bishop have, let's say, this bishop have more space to go from the one side to another. So after the c4, Carlsen here started a bit aggressive plan. He played the move a5, saying, I don't want to wait anymore. I want to try to push a pawn as far as possible to try to find some kind of a counterplay on the queen side. So a5 on the board. White played c5 to close everything. Very interesting. And now black played a4, saying aggression is my way out from this slightly worse endgame. So after the move a4, here Hare Krishna played a very interesting move. So I will say it's a logical one, but here please stop the video and try to find a way. How will you play as white this position? Thank you so much. So here, what's a very strong move from white is to actually take ba4. Yes, in one way, this pawn will be a target now after rook a8. But why white should accept this sacrifice, little sacrifice? The main reason is that white will get the b file in return, and that's like rook to b1 and rook to b7. So after the move ba, nothing else for black to do except to go to rook a8. But now white played the move rook to b1, saying, now I want to target the b pawn. Black took, white took rook b7, knight to b5, and then again, yes, this was, I think, all the part of white plan. yes, here, like this pawn on d4 is attacked twice, but again, sometimes the best defense is the very strong offense. And here, white also found a very important a target that white can actually attack. That's at this f7 pawn. Here, white played the move bishop to g6, saying, okay, I want to target your f pawn in this position. Now, the problem for black is that black can't take like this d4 pawn, because if just rook d4 happen, white will just simply move the king, and then f pawn will go down. And this is a bit of problem, because when f pawn goes down, the g5 h6, this can be a bit of tricky how to play this part, this type of position. So here, what happened after bishop g6? Carlsen gave a check, rook to Carlsen gave a check, this rook to a3 check. The main reason for this check is to put white king to go back, so not to go forward but to go back. So after the rook a3, here white played the move king to d2, and when I analyze a little bit this position here, the best plan for black was just to defend and not to take this pawn on a2, but the plan was just to defend the f pawn. So here the best plan for black to stay in the game was actually to play a move rook to f3. So the main point is, now rook is defending the f pawn, but what's even more important for black is that this d4 pawn will go down. And if this was, let's say, if this was in the game, I think this is completely double-edged position, and both sides can actually win this game. So here, after a4, knight d4, and like I said, this is, let's say, crazy endgame. But what happened in the game? Here, black took rook to a2. So this move, white obviously played king e3, let's go forward. And now I think that after the move rook a7, because this is now the only move for black to try to trade the rooks, this endgame after rook a7, knight a7, bishop d3 is a very hard for black to keep. And then from here, white has like a very nice and easy play, because the problem for black is that like these 2 pawns, or t6 and d5, are just on the same diagonal as on this bishop. Let's say diagonal, what I mean is like on the same light squares as white has this bishop onto d3. Also, what I wanted just to say it, if black here tries to keep giving the check, so let's say move like rook a to, let's say rook to a3, here white will just simply start going with the king, knight to d4, and now this will happen like rook to f7 check, and after king to h8, king goes to e5, attacking the knight. But what's even more important here is that the white king will start to be, let's say, a very important piece for white, like to give a checkmate to the black king. And after check, rook h6, okay, like 2 points, bishop, rook, very active king. This must be winning for white. So let's go back to the moment where in this position here, black played the move rook to a7, and after the bishop to d3, now because of this t6 d5 pawn, sorry, I mean that here black is in a big trouble. So here what happened is black played knight c8, and again, when you don't know what to do in this type of the endgames, let's activate the king. So king f4, king to f6, and now bishop to f5. Again, white bishop is just playing against the knight. So after knight a7, now very nice move. Again, bishop goes to d7. So the main reason for bishop to be here is that this knight is a kind of like in a cage. The knight can't jump anyway because the c6 pawn will be in danger. So here, after the move knight to b5, white just took bishop to c6, knight to d4, bishop to d5, and a couple of nice moves with the bishop and the king together, and the c pawn will go to the queen. So here will just be pushed. So here bishop d7, c6, and now very nice move. Just in the end, it looks like a double check, but this is it, king e5. The main reason is that this pawn endgame is just easily losing for black. Unfortunately, just here white can just simply play a move king f6 with the plan of king g7, king h6, and the pawn endgame is easily winning for Hare Krishna. So let's go back. I hope you enjoyed this, let's say, strong bishop first game in this chapter. Let's go back a bit. So here, like I said, this is a small advantage for white, especially because of the black pawn structure. After the b3, king c2, bishop c1, king c1, h6. But like I said, black is a slightly worse, but this knight can jump all around. That's what happens. So here, Carlsen play knight f8, trying after the move knight to g6 here to try to put the pressure on the h pawn. So after the move h5, bishop f5, white is trying to put the king forward, and that's what happened. And again, c4, always when you have the bishop, your idea here is to try to open up the center as much as possible. Here, Carlsen started with the plan a5, trying to push this pawn as far as possible. But here, white, I think, made a right decision to take ba, because white rook needs an open file to get activated. So I'm not saying white is winning, but at least the game will be quite interesting for both sides after ba. Rook a8, rook to b7, and after knight b5. Again, this is a very important thing for your, let's say, future games. When you don't know how to defend certain pawn, why not try to be more offense? Let's say try to go to offense, try to attack the weakness of the black. Here, this bishop to g6 is that weakness. So here, check here, and now this was the last, I will say, very important moment in this game. Here, black should play just rook to f3, trying to defend the f pawn, and then to try to take d pawn. This will be completely unclear what will happen, but here, black took on a2, and now this endgame is very hard, especially because black has a lot of this pawn weaknesses that bishop can easily attack. So after knight c8, again, king activity. And after bishop f5, knight a7, bishop to d7, we can see how this knight on a7 is kind of like in the cage. Bishop is just controlling everything. Black tried with bishop c6, with knight b5, bishop c6, but after all of these pawns went down, there is just easy conversion of the win after the move t6. So I hope you enjoyed this, I will say, quick game, quick chapter. So I hope you will, when you have the bishop, you try to open up position as much as possible and to control the knight like in this game. And I'm sure you will do this in some of your future games. Thank you so much, and see you in the next game. Take care. Hello everyone, welcome to chapter 2, Strong Bishop in the Endgame. This will be the game between Tikan and Hans, who was white, and Mamedov Nijat, who had the black pieces in this game. So first of all, we have very, let's say, complicated positions with the two bishops against, so bishop pair against the bishop knight pair in this position. So here, let's say, I would like you to stop the video here and try to find the best move or the best idea for black, and I will explain everything in a second. Thank you so much. I hope you find the right move. Here, as you can see, it's a very complex position, and black needs to simplify this whole stuff in the best possible way. So here, the first move, I will say, is the crucial move for black if black wants to keep playing this position for advantage. The move in this position is just bishop to e3, taking the knight immediately on the square e3. So what's the reason for this? Obviously, white king can't take the bishop because the knight will just go down. Here, white must take this bishop with the knight. After knight to e3, like I said, black is keep simplifying this position. One of the main reasons why black is simplifying this position is that this h pawn will be more dangerous when there are like a less of white pieces on the board. So here, after the move knight e3, black played the move rook takes d1. And of course, obviously, after the move rook d1, what do we have pass pawn if we don't want to push it? So here, black played h4, pushing the pawn as far as possible. So suddenly here, white position is not so comfortable anymore, because if this h pawn come to h3, I will say that white pieces are just not ready to stop it. So here, black played the move knight to g4, trying to block this diagonal of the bishop that will protect the h pawn. But black is saying, I don't care about your knight g4, let's go forward. So here, black played the move h3, pushing this h pawn as far as possible. And now I will say that this position is already hard. Not so many moves for for white to play, but white played kind of like a passive move. That's like a knight to h2, trying to stop the h pawn as, let's say, as the best as possible. But now, again, please stop the video here and try to find the best move for black to pressure this endgame, or to find the best way to get the best of this endgame. So try, take a look. Thank you so much. I hope you found the right move. Now I will say second very important moment. The move is b5. The main plan of the move b5 is like, okay, your knight on the h2 is just too far away. So black idea here is to push b5, try to open up the queen side, and at the same time to activate the rook on the b file, because there is nothing else to do, because this bishop is also controlling this diagonal on a beautiful way. Nothing else for white to do here except to take it. cb, cb, ab, and now rook comes to b8. So nothing else to do except to play move rook b8, because now the b5 pawn will go down, and not only b5 pawn, but also the b3 pawn who is there. So after the rook b8, white played knight f3. Let's grab one pawn. So rook to b5, knight jumps to d4, and after the move knight d4 here, black played the move rook to b4, saying, I will not let you to take my bishop. I want to put my rook here so I can control the fort in this position. So after the rook b4, white said, okay, let me move the king so I can release the knight, but now it's a time for black to grab some bonus material. Here, black took bishop to b3, a free pawn. White moved the rook, and again, we push the h pawn. Now it's a time for black to push the a pawn, so a4 push. White took the h pawn, push more, a3. And now nothing else to do, but like for white, I really like that white really tried the best moves, like to stay in the game. And here white took, rook b3 check, and now king to g4. So this is kind of like a third critical moment in this game where black needs to play very precise moves if he wants to win this endgame. So here, please, again, stop the video and try to find the best and the most precise way how black is winning this rook endgame. Thank you so much. I hope you find the right move. The key move here is the move rook to b4 check. Why? It's a very important in this type of rook endgame is always to put the rook behind the pawn, because in that way this a pawn will be the strongest. So after the move rook b4, white played king f3, and finally the rook will come to a4, and this a pawn would just easily be pushed forward. So after rook a4, white resigned, because after the move rook to a2, black just simply can grab all of these pawns, and the f pawn will go to the queen. The problem for this rook is that the rook is stuck for the a pawn, because this rook can't move anywhere, because the pawn will be just pushed forward. Okay, let's do a quick recap for this endgame. I hope you enjoy this. So Mamedov Nijat in this position here played the first very important move, that's a bishop e3. So right trade in the right time, simplifying positions. When there is just one knight in the, let's say one knight on the board in this type of position, white doesn't have enough counter play. So that's one of the reasons. And also the second important reason, this h pawn is already very strong. So after the bishop e3, knight e3, again, beautiful trade of one pair of rooks, because now the h pawn is purely free to be pushed forward. So h4, let's go, knight to g4, h3, let's push as far as possible. And now when knight is on h2, we have enough time to push the b pawn on the other side and try to open up the queen side, so b5, and together with the bishop, this queen side will be completely destroyed from the white side, obviously. And after takes, rook to b8, the b pawn is going down. Nothing else to do. White try to activate at least the knight as much as possible, but after the rook b4, knight is pinned for the king, and the b pawn is also going down. After rook d2, let's push the a, we push the h, now it's time to push the a pawn. And now in this endgame, it's like the second very important, or the third very important moment is, let's give one check with the rook to b4, and then let's go from the side. The a pawn will just become a queen in the next a couple of moves. This was like I will say the short game, like a short chapter, but like it's a very important because I'm sure that with the right trade in this type of positions, you can win a lot of games. Thank you so much. I hope you enjoyed this chapter, and I'll see you in the next game. Bye. Hello everyone, welcome to chapter 2, Strong Bishop in the Endgame. Today we'll take a look in the game between Almashi Zoltan and Henkin Igor. In this position on the board here, what you can see is also a very complicated position middle game where like white king is under attack, but also the blank king as well. And we can see there are like a lot of pieces, and also what we can see is that this knight on h7 is a bit passive piece here. So now I would like you to stop the video and try to find one beautiful tactical idea that Almashi found over the board. So please take a look here how white is playing for the win this position. Thank you so much. I hope you find the right move. Here, white started with the beautiful idea knight to f7, sacrificing the knight on the square f7. So here, let's now think why this sacrifice is so good. First of all, this knight can't be taken with a queen, because if a queen takes, this bishop on d6 will go down pretty easily. So that's not the one way how black should defend. But also black takes it with the king. The problem here is move queen to d3, double attack, beautiful move. So after the queen 3, bishop is under attack, and also the knight on h7. Here Henking decided to play a move, knight to f8, trying at least to keep the knight alive. In this position here, if black tries to get the pawn with the move bc4, white will simply just take the h7 knight. And after cb, also the problem for black is that the g pawn is also going down because the bishop is defending the queen. And after a couple of checks, ab, the position here is very easily winning. After the move rook c1, queen is pinned for the king. So let's go back and let's go to the moment after the move queen to d3 with a double attack on the black king. Here black played move knight f8 and now queen to d6. So how this goes is like white took some material and now white is pretty happy to transpose this position to the winning endgame. So let's see how white did that. So after the move queen d6, white played bc4, and in my opinion, very nice move by white, saying, okay, you want to open the c file? I want to play a move b4. Why this move is so important? First of all, there is no any counterplay of black on the c file. Second of all, white is preparing to play the endgame 2 against the 1 when the queens disappear let's say when the queens disappear, especially because I'm sure the black will trade the queen pretty soon, because the black king very easily can be in danger if the white queen is still on the board, and that's what happened. Black in this position played the move queen takes d6, and after queen d6, white took rook d6, and after rook c7 again. In this type of the endgames, especially bishop against the knight, when the bishop is like in such a beautiful diagonal a1 g7, it's very important for white to target the weaknesses in the black position. And here, as we can see, the main target or the main weakness is the a7 pawn, and white played the move rook to a6, saying, I want to play the move bishop d4 in the right time, and I want to grab the a pawn. Here, black played the move rook to b7. Here, that's a pretty, I will say it's a bit of passive defense. Probably the best way for black to defend is at least to activate the knight as soon as possible with a plan with the knight to d7. But again, white has a very nice plan with the bishop to d4, and the a pawn will go down. So here, after the move rook to b7, white had a lot of different ways how to win this endgame. For example, personally like the move like king to c2, saying I want to play king c2, then I want to maybe play a move like a4, b5, and bishop to d4. But in this game here, Almoshi found a very direct plan, or completely direct plan, how to play, and white played immediately move bishop d4, saying, yes, you can take my b pawn, but in return, I will grab your a pawn on a7. So after the move bishop d4, nothing else for black to do except to take rook to b4, but now white played the move king to c2, saying, yes, I gave the b, but this is my pawn pretty soon. Black played rook to b7, trying at least to defend the g pawn, because if black does anything else, white will just simply take the a pawn, and at the same time, because this will be a check, the g pawn will be over as well. So here, after the move, king c2, black played back with the rook, and trade, trade, trade. So here, what do we have now? This is the endgame with the same number of pawns, but this a pawn looks pretty dangerous, and this knight, it's in a very passive spot, and this knight is so far away from the white a pawn. So here, black tried, and black played the move e5, saying, okay, I want to sacrifice this pawn, but in return for this e pawn, black will get the e6 square, and the black king will start going forward. So here, white doesn't have a choice except to accept this gift. So f e5, let's go, king going forward, but now white is saying, let me go back. I want to control the e5 pawn. I will not return my gift. So after the move bishop to d4, black played the move king to d5. Okay, so here now white played the move bishop to c3. Very important first to play with the bishop, not with the king, because if, let's say, white goes with the king, now knight e6, and now suddenly the bishop is in a bit of strange place, because when the bishop is moved, sometimes this e pawn can go down. So here, first white played the move bishop to c3, and it's a kind of a very hard endgame for black here, because now if, let's say, black continues with the move like knight e6, white idea is just simply push the a pawn as far as possible. So here, after the move bishop c3, black tried at least to reduce material as much as possible, and black played the move g6. Again, I will say important moment for white in this position, so please stop the video and try to find a way how white is playing for the win this position and in this moment. Thank you so much. I hope you find the right move. After the move g6, it's absolutely essential for white to play a move g5. Very, I will say, interesting moment, and in the way it's like a funny situation. 4 pawns on the 6th and the 5th rank, and but the problem is after the move g5, black can't stop at least one white pawn who will cross this this bridge of the 4 pawns. So after the move g5 here, nothing else. Let's say here, black took h to g, and white played h6. So here now it's too many white pawns in a very nice, let's say, nice places. h6, e5. So after there, let's analyze a little bit more. So here, if he takes, we can again take g2, h6. Again, it's a very dangerous spot where these pawns are so strong, and this h pawn can be easily catched by the bishop on the c3. So after the move g5 here, black decided at least to take with the hg, but now white played the move h6, g4. Let's rush with the king, so king to d2. Now it's a time for white at least to secure this g pawn. Knight h7, king goes to e3, jumping, king f4, f g3, check, and okay, white thought, okay, black gave a double check, but the problem is that this h pawn is so far away, so after this, h7, and here black resigned. Just this h pawn was such a big threat that here black couldn't handle it. Ooh, I hope you enjoyed this game, and let's go, as for each example that we do, let's go for the quick recap. So here in this position, I will say the first critical moment in this complicated positions, white found this beautiful move, knight f7, saying if you want to take with the queen, bishop will go down. If you want to take with the king, queen to d3, double attack on the bishop and on the knight. Nothing else to do, then the queen d6, and now from here white is transposing this position to the winning endgame, because the bishop on c3 is much better than this passive knight on f8, and also after the move b4, white has this 2-on-1 pawns on the queen side, so that's a pretty nice stuff to have. So after the queen d, rook c7, again, white found a new weakness in the black position, and that's an a7 pawn. So after rook a7, white is saying, I want to play bishop d4. So here, nothing else to do. Black tried, but bishop d4. White is also saying, you can take my b, but I will take your a. So a couple of checks, take. Black at least tried to play move e5, sacrificing a pawn to get the king in the game. But after e5, f3, king e6, white played just a couple of calm moves, go back with the bishop, secure this one pawn advantage. And here, because the a pawn will become such a huge problem for black, black tried to reduce material with the g6, but after the g5, in the next couple of moves, black resigned because black can't handle this, let's say, one pawn, especially the h pawn of white that will end the game, and that's how everything goes. Thank you so much. I hope you enjoyed this game. I hope you're enjoying this chapter, and definitely hope I will see you in the next chapter as well. Thank you so much, and see you soon. Bye.